this would not be objectively comparing the values. So, as you know, if you've read this literature, right, what Mises famously offers as a solution to this is pricing. So, if we have prices determined by our free exchange of things, free trade, where we're demonstrating our preferences for things against money, all in the common standard of money, then we can, in fact, objectively say when one person values something relative to money more than another person. Right? So if I buy a chocolate ice cream cone and I pay $5 for the chocolate ice cream cone, and you are also in the ice cream store and you see I'm getting this chocolate ice cream cone for $5 and you decide not to buy it, you walk out, then we know objectively that I value ice cream relative to money more than you do. We don't know what subjective value I get on it, right? But we do know something objective now. And this is sufficient for economizing decisions to be made. Right? It's not everything that we'd like to know about valuing, but it's sufficient. So now we can economize, producers can economize their decisions on the basis of what Mises again called appraisement. Appraisement is the calculation of monetary sums, in particular net income from production, right? Revenues, monetary revenues minus monetary costs, and net worth, asset values minus liability values. So operational decisions about the use of resources can be made efficiently or in an economizing way on the basis of net income. You tell what sort of computers to make, who to buy the inputs from, who to hire, so on and so forth, to keep costs down in these different lines of production. And then capital investment decisions can be efficiently made on the basis of net worth. So each entrepreneur, each capitalist entrepreneur can know if I invest in this line of activity, if I invest in, let's say, netbooks, my capital will be worth this amount, and that amount of capital is greater than if I invest in this line where it's, let's say, batteries for hybrid cars. Right? So the whole capital structure now can be, in the division of labor, can be extended indefinitely through the use of economic calculation. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, this is topics that you'll take up in detail later. And here we just want to show the very beginning of this. And, of course, not only dwell upon the very first step of this. We want to look at the logistics of this first part. So this is a schematic for showing how preferences undergird all prices that develop in the economy, whether they're the prices of consumer goods or producer goods. And the consequences of this, right? The economic calculation consequences of this. So we start with preferences up here, and maybe I should add that when we say that everything starts with preferences, we're not making the claim that somehow preferences exist in a vacuum. We're not saying that. In fact, again, this is a mainstream view, that preferences can, as I said before, can sort of be written out on the blackboard without paying attention to the situation of acting at all. They're sort of abstract over here. No. For Menger and the Austrians, preferences are in the conditions of action itself. Right? It's in the particular circumstances of particular actions that people form preferences. So all the particular objective facts that surround this action are also being taken account of by this person in his preferences. So we're not leaving that out, right? We're not saying that the objective features of reality don't count for anything. We're just saying that they count only through the judgment of the human mind. The way in which they count is a judgment of our mind. And in certain circumstances, we might ignore these objective conditions, paying attention to the price of something when we go into Walmart and buy it. And then in other cases, it may be very important to us. We judge that. Okay, so that's what I mean when I start with preferences. I'm not saying that there isn't anything else, just the preferences are a controlling factor. The preferences are what are determining the outcome. They're what determine demand and supply. So from preferences, we get both supply and demand. This is the step that we wish to show. We'll show the logistics of this in just a minute. That'll be our next step. And then how prices come from that. So that's all we want to show logistically about price theory. And then the rest of it would be, of course, that once we have prices for consumer goods, they generate revenue for the entrepreneurs. Right? So we have a new netbook computer from, I guess, let me use this example. Isn't Apple supposed to be coming out with a, what do they call it? What's the kind of computer you can, right? Tablet computer. You know that, since I have a tablet computer. You can write on. Right? Take notes on, and then it transfers it into the Word programs and so on. Well, okay, so anyway, they're going to come out with this, and they'll sell it for a certain price, right? And they'll generate certain revenue from consumer purchases. Right? This is the revenue side, and then the prices of consumer goods are costs for us, right? When we buy these things. So we also are engaged in economic calculation as consumers, to a lesser extent than entrepreneurs, right? Only on one part of our decision process. We use the objective prices to assess the opportunity cost of our purchases. So if I buy one of these tablet Apple computers and it's $800, then I can economize that purchase because I know the prices of all the other things that I could buy in the economy. And I can calculate what I could buy with $800 instead of the Apple computer. So I can say, I get the Apple computer and I give up this set of goods that I value less highly. And so that permits me to economize as a consumer, right? And then revenue becomes part of the net income calculation then for the entrepreneur, right? And as Joe Salerno was explaining briefly, revenues then determine demand for the producer goods. Not independent of the objective physical features of production, but with them, right? With them. So we get marginal revenue product. We get the physical productivity of certain factors of production, but we value them and choose to use them or not to use them according to the revenue that they generate. Not just their physical abilities, but how much value do they add to the attainment of consumer ends. So that's where the demand for producer goods comes from. The supply of producer goods then comes from the owners who do this just on the basis of preferences again, right? So we take one job versus another. You own a little bit of land and you lease it to a farmer instead of using it for, let's say, an open area for people to hike in or whatever other uses you might put it to, right? So we supply goods just according, again, to our preferences or whoever owns these, according to their preferences. Then again, prices would form for the factors of production because now we have demand. The entrepreneurs are demanding the factors of production and we're supplying, or owners of the factors of production are supplying them. Prices would form in the same way that they form for the consumer goods through the interplay of supply and demand. And then this would generate costs for the entrepreneurs, right? They're paying these factor prices, hiring labor, and so on and so forth. So here's where we get the two elements of the net income calculation, revenues versus costs. And then this generates income for the producers, and that again then influences the economizing activity of all of us as we participate in the market. How much income we have, what set of goods can we buy then? How do we choose between different productive activities where the income payment would be different or the compensation payment would be different and so on. Okay, so that's a schematic that puts the whole picture together, and you'll see different parts of this being explained throughout the week. Okay, so now